Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson-Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. Good to have you back with us here on this Wednesday afternoon, not 12 hours past the point at which SpaceX had its most recent launch, sending 4 astronauts on their way to dock with the International Space Station. The quartet of Axiom Mission 4 set to rendezvous and dock with the orbiting outpost coming up at about 7 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 1100 UTC on Thursday, June 26th. So far, a nominal flight of the newest and final Dragon spacecraft to enter the fleet, as we're currently T plus 9 hours, 51 minutes and change into the flight of that mission. Back down here at Cape Canaveral, we are under an hour from SpaceX's next Falcon flight, looking for a liftoff of this rocket carrying 27 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites to head up to low Earth orbit as well as part of SpaceX's vast Starlink constellation, currently consisting of more than 7,800 satellites that are presently on orbit, according to friend of the channel and expert orbital tracker Jonathan McDowell. To date, SpaceX has launched more than 9,000 Starlink satellites. Of course, not all of them, as we just mentioned, are still on orbit, but SpaceX continues to grow and refresh its constellation as it continues to build out its service for satellite internet here in the United States and around the world. Got most of the team a little bleary, but back in action, ready to support our launch coverage today. Our Spaceflight Now editors, Stephen Young and John Pisani, are running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Our Adam Bernstein is out and about manning the tracking cameras, getting ready to follow the flight of this Falcon 9 once it does take off from Pad 40. Michael Caine has the morning off, but if you're not following the fellas on X, I got some great stuff from the Axiom Mission 4 launch earlier this morning. So be sure to follow them at their handles here. Adam is at ABurnNYC, Michael Caine at MD Caine Jr., John is at John Pisani Photo, and be sure to follow Spaceflight Now, simply at Spaceflight Now. If you're not on X, you can also find us on Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. We'll also be joined later on in the broadcast by our friend Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. As we're getting our coverage going here with a little less than 55 and a half minutes, also want to thank our moderators who hopefully got some rest in between the Axiom Mission 4 launch this morning and now. See Callistia Lee, Jeff Hansen back with us again today for round 2. Just scrolling to see if we've got any of the other mods here. Not seeing any, but if you do see any of the other folks with the wrench beside them, our moderators, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. Also want to thank channel member Cumulus Granatus for being back with us again this afternoon to help answer folks' questions in the live chat. You can help make our moderators' lives that much easier just by following the rules of the chat. We ask that you converse in English so that they can respond as necessary, that you refrain from using all caps when you type your message, that you hold off from delving into overt politics or religion. There are plenty of other YouTube channels for those discussions. We ask that this respectfully not be one of them. And last but certainly not least, that you treat everyone else in the chat with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. Remember, every broadcast could be someone's first, and something that may seem obvious to you may not be to them. So just go ahead and treat that with a little bit of grace and understanding, and we'll all get along swimmingly here. Oh, and I see Rick Donner also here. Thanks for flagging, Callistia. These live launch opportunities are made possible by our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube, as well as on our website, spaceflightnow.com. Thanks to channel members here on the page: The Rocket Girl, Stephen Fraser, see, it looks like we're still building in our members that are joining us today. See Sulfur for lunch. Kenneth Urbanek is here today. Mandy L., good to see you all. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube. Access to our members-only Discord server. And, of course, the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. To that end, I want to thank Callistia for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships and helping to grow our little community here on YouTube. So to our 5 newest gifted channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat, and we hope you decide to stick around beyond the month that you were just gifted. Last little bit of housekeeping for now. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space and spaceflight, or just want to pass along some kind words of support, like John Seeking did just now, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature to have your comment or query elevated for discussion. Not only will he be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. So I want to thank Jason Seeking for a $20 Super Chat. Really appreciate you supporting us at that level, Jason, who says, "Good day to all. Another beautiful day." It is another beautiful day, another good opportunity to launch a rocket. Coming into today's now second chance for SpaceX to launch a Falcon 9, looking at an 80% chance for favorable weather, with cumulus clouds being the only potential limiting factor that we've got on the docket. As you look out at our wide camera here at the press site, you can see some of those cumulus clouds hanging around the pad. Let's swing out to the turn basin view, get another vantage point from just a little bit further north from that last camera you just saw. Bit of a breeze, noticing with the American flag waving there. Turning now to our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs down on Merritt Island. You can see some clouds a little bit more built up in this point of view. The Falcon 9 rocket's going to be taking a northeasterly turn once it does leave the pad, so the focus will be on clouds and offshore storms that are up to the north along the ascent corridor today. Now T-minus 50 minutes and counting. As we're approaching the point in which SpaceX will make the call on the start of fueling for the Falcon 9 rocket today, let's go ahead and step through the countdown timeline, let you know what we're anticipating over the course of the next 49 minutes and some change ahead of a good flight of the Falcon 9. Generally speaking, the SpaceX launch director will make the call on the start of prop load at T-minus 38 minutes. SpaceX does this poll electronically, as those of you who were with us for the Axiom Mission 4 coverage this morning will recall. So we won't hear those voice callouts, or we wouldn't for this mission anyway. SpaceX has long since stopped publishing its mission audio for its Starlink flights, barring a special occasion like the booster landing down in the Bahamas that happened some time ago now. But once the go-ahead is given for the start of fueling, tanking of the rocket will begin at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. Also, liquid oxygen will start to flow on board the booster stage. T-minus 30 minutes, SpaceX will start to load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels on the booster. Same will happen on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP-1 loading will conclude. Then at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, we'll see the strong back chill-down process begin. That's when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage. The visual manifestation of this is referred to as the big vent, which will begin here at pad 40 at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. It's a good visual indication that the countdown is moving along on time and as expected. Venting will wrap up at about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds and allow second stage LOX load to proceed. Moving along in the count at T-minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will start. SpaceX will send a little bit of liquid oxygen through the turbopumps and plumbing on the 9 Merlin engines for the booster of the rocket. And that helps protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes prior to flight, the first stage RP-1 tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. The clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the strong back reclines a few degrees away from the rocket. It stays in that position until liftoff. At that point of flight, it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. T-minus 3 minutes is when the first stage LOX tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold-down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for T0 liftoff. now about 12:40 or 12:38 here on the East Coast. You'll notice a sizable jump in the T0 time as SpaceX has decided to push back considerably further into their launch window today. Window runs until 4:32 p.m. as long as they have not started fueling, and SpaceX now targeting a new launch time of 3:03 p.m. Eastern. 3:03 p.m. Eastern, 18:03 UTC for those around the world, or 19:03. So with that time adjustment, we are now back to T minus 2 hours, 23 minutes, 50 seconds, and counting. For folks that may just be joining us now, it's currently about quarter till 1 p.m. here on the East Coast. SpaceX has pushed back the launch time of the Starlink 10-16 mission now to 3:03 p.m. Eastern, nearing the end of their window. Got about an hour and a half left to play with if necessary. SpaceX not listing a reason for the delay, but potentially connected either to the turnaround time getting back to the pad with Slick 40 here at the Cape, or an impact from those cumulus clouds that are hanging around in the vicinity of the pad and offshore as well. I want to thank some folks for their support as we're awaiting the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. Thanks to channel member The Rocket Girl with a $15 Canadian super chat. Appreciate you, Rocket Girl. Who says, on this day 1 year ago, I was able to witness the launch of GOES-U from Launch Complex 39A. Was that 1 year ago already? My gosh. That was a beautiful Falcon Heavy launch. She goes on to say, I was glad to see that the Spaceflight Now coverage is being streamed at the Visitor Complex screen. Go SpaceX, go Spaceflight Now. Thank you for the fond memories, Rocket Girl. It's going to be a minute till we see another Falcon Heavy launch. If all goes well, that would be later this year with the flight of Astrobotics Griffin lander carrying the Flip rover from Venturi Astrolab. So fingers crossed that things progress well with that mission, and we'll see that flight in Q4 of 2025. Thanks as well to Beverly Knuckles for a $10 super chat, who says thanks for all the work from Spaceflight Now mods, Cumulus Granatus for the info, and Mr. Robinson and the team. Full 24 hours. It has been a full 24 hours and a full week, starting off on Monday with a trio of launches from both coasts. Now a doubleheader today, assuming that the weather and everything else cooperates before the launch window expires on this one. I also want to thank Lita for being a member with us, marking now 18 months at the pad leader level. Lita says, I love sharing love of launches here. Much appreciation for all you do. Would have been a pretty tight turnaround had SpaceX been able to hit at the opening of the window today. Would have been launch coming up 2 days, 11 hours, 40 minutes, and 40 seconds following their last Pad 40 flight earlier this week. So SpaceX is getting faster at the rate at which it can turn around a pad, and that would have been a new record for Slick 40. Second fastest, excuse me. Thanks for behind-the-scenes correction on that. Second fastest turnaround that would have been, but not in the cards for whatever reason, whether it's the storms that are pushing their way off from offshore, coming from the Atlantic heading towards the Florida Peninsula here, starting to build up along the flight path for the Falcon 9 rocket. As you look out wide, you can start to see those on the left-hand side of your screen. So this delay now is potentially in response to that, and hopefully this will give them enough of a buffer and they can get this show on the road. Meanwhile, SpaceX is a little more than 10 hours and 16 minutes past the point of launching Axiom Mission 4. That crew continues to make their way up to the International Space Station for a docking tomorrow morning. As we've got a healthy amount of time on our hands before the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket, because it has been quite a 24-hour push for the team, given the 5+ hours of coverage we had last night going into this morning. We're going to go ahead and step back on commentary for a little bit, move into a lighter mode, if you will. For the better part of an hour, we'll start to pick up our normal cadence as we get into the T-1 hour mark, but we'll be checking in with you periodically throughout the course of the next hour and some change before we get into the final hour of the count. We'll leave you with some space tunes to enjoy in the meantime, mixed in with our wonderful mic system out there so you can blend the sounds of nature with some space jams as well. You're listening to live coverage of Spaceflight Now, Starlink 10-16. time now currently T-minus 2 hours and counting as things are at the moment. We're tracking the planned liftoff of the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket there at Space Launch Complex 40 coming up at 3:03 p.m. Eastern. SpaceX has a launch window today for this mission that extends out until 4:32 p.m. Eastern, if needed, 2032 UTC, as long as the company has not started fueling its Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX hasn't listed a reason for the launch delay, but potentially some inclement weather offshore that has been pushing its way from the Atlantic towards the Florida Peninsula. If we take a look back out at the, let's go to our turn basin shot here, and you can see some of those clouds that are building offshore. This rocket's going to be taking a northeasterly trajectory once it is able to leave the pad today. So launch teams are closely monitoring this offshore weather and factoring that into their calculations for a launch today. With this extended holdover time, we're going to bring you back to our space tunes, but just wanted to pop in for a moment, as we will periodically over the course of the next hour and some change, let you know about any updates as they arise. You're watching Spaceflight Now as live coverage of the Starlink 10-16 mission, looking to take flight from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Before we do, though, go back to the space tunes, let's take just a brief moment, give you an idea of what the weather looks like, those storms that I was talking about. You can see that band of cumulus clouds from this view from the Goes East satellite pushing towards right on top of the spaceport here. Looks like it's hitting just above pad 40. The rocket, again, is going to be taking a northeasterly trajectory once it does launch from Florida's Space Coast. So teams will keep a close eye on this building weather, and hopefully with a time now delayed to 3:03 p.m. Eastern, 1903 UTC, that'll give them enough time to get beyond this inclement weather. We'll be back with you again with periodic updates. You're watching Spaceflight Now and live coverage of Starlink 10-16. Time now currently T-minus 1 hour, 44 minutes, 21 seconds and counting to the currently planned T0 liftoff time of the Starlink 10-16 mission. Giving another look at the clouds that are forming over Florida's Space Coast as some less than ideal weather continues to build towards our area. We are now currently in a phase 2 lightning warning, so proximity for the presence of lightning in all areas of both the Kennedy Space Center as well as Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We are, of course, taking our necessary precautions. Our folks are indoors and safe until we exit this Phase 2 lightning warning. No rain right now at the LC-39A press site, which is certainly good for our tracking cameras. Again, SpaceX still continues to aim for a liftoff at 3:03 p.m. Eastern, 19:03 UTC for the launch of 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. With a window that extends out until 4:32 p.m. Eastern, SpaceX does still have a fair amount of time to maneuver here with this launch opportunity, as long as fueling of the Falcon 9 has not begun. At the time, T-minus 1 hour, 42 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. We're just a little more than an hour away at this point from the SpaceX launch director making the call on the start of prop load for today's mission. If for whatever reason things don't pan out with this Falcon 9 flight, SpaceX does have another launch opportunity available tomorrow, Thursday, June 26th, with a window opening up at 12:11 p.m. Eastern. If they do need to pivot to that backup opportunity, the weather isn't going to get any better. Heading into today's launch window, the forecast suggested an 80% chance for good conditions during this 4-hour pocket of time. A 24-hour delay would result in that dropping down to 60% favorability, with not only the presence of cumulus clouds, but also the risk of violation for the anvil cloud rule, which extends the impact of area thunderstorms closer to the pad along the flight corridors. So certainly something that would make launch trickier if they have to push to that 24-hour backup opportunity. We'll continue to keep you apprised of any updates over the course of the remaining countdown. We're going to return you back, though, to our space tunes, and we'll be checking in with you periodically as we have updates and to let you know about any additional changes. You're watching our live coverage of Starlink 10-16 here at Spaceflight Now. Time now just under T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes. SpaceX continues to progress as things currently stand towards a liftoff at 3:03 p.m. Eastern, 19:03 p.m. or 19:03 UTC for those around the world. No new update to share with you as far as the weather is concerned. At this point, we are still in a Phase 2 lightning warning here at the Kennedy Space Center as well as across Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Heard a few rumbles of thunder as these offshore storms continue to make their way onshore. No rain has materialized yet, but that certainly could change over the course of the next half hour or so. SpaceX still has quite a bit of time to maneuver around today, depending on the speed of the storms and the foreseen impact from the offshore weather. We'll continue to keep you apprised of any additional updates as they come our way and let you know, of course, especially if there's a change to the T0 time for this mission. We'll continue on with light commentary until we reach the 1 hour mark, and then we'll switch back to more of our regular style of programming. But for now, you're continuing to watch Spaceflight Now's live coverage of Starlink 10-16. Turn it back over to some space tunes for the meantime. Time now currently T-minus 1 hour, 1 minute, 17 seconds and counting. Still have the presence of those cumulus clouds in the area as we're continuing to track towards the hopeful liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket at 3:03 p.m. Eastern, 19:03 UTC. Taking a look at one of our cameras that is facing towards Launch Complex 39A, where just about 12 hours ago, 11 and a half hours ago, we saw the launch of Axiom Mission 4. See those thick clouds that are building? That's what we've been watching on the Goes East satellite view that have been streaming across Florida's Space Coast. A little bit harder to see when we go out to our turn-based camera, not quite as prominent in this shot here. The Phase 2 lightning warning has been lifted for most areas of the Space Coast, the spaceport, I should say, with the exception of Pad 39A, which does make sense given the visual that we just showed you. The Phase 1 lightning watch remains in effect for all areas, but pushing in closer with our tracking camera here, you'll notice that we've got a lot less heat distortion on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point, so some really nice clarity as we're now within an hour of the hopeful liftoff of this rocket. Whether notwithstanding, this is going to be the second fastest turnaround time for a launch from Pad 40 if all goes to plan today. Less than 59 and a half minutes to go. You can really, this shot gives you a much better view of those streams of cumulus clouds as we pull back out a little bit further away. You can see our office, the fishbowl down there in the bottom right hand corner of the big box, but this is an anvil cloud, which is certainly not helpful as SpaceX hopes to launch their rocket here in the next hour. SpaceX has more time to play with if they have not begun loading their Falcon 9 rocket with RP-1 propellant and liquid oxygen for the oxidizer. We haven't noticed any venting that we typically see about an hour away from liftoff, although we've been keeping our eyes peeled. Wind direction can obscure that sometimes, so that's not a hard and fast rule, but we do have a new T0 for you of 3:14 p.m. Eastern. 3:14 p.m. is our new T0 as SpaceX continues to navigate a dual challenge of nearly record turnaround time for this pad as well as some less than ideal weather. Going to be updating our countdown clock here momentarily to reflect the new T0. Now back out at T-minus 1 hour, 8 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. Time now currently back at T-minus 1 hour and counting. SpaceX currently moving towards launch time of 3:14 p.m. Eastern, 19:14 UTC for those joining around the world. Conditions have largely remained what they have been for the course of this countdown, so not a whole lot new to report at this point in the launch timeline. Still have not seen the typical pre-launch venting that we would expect at around an hour out, and that's because we are not an hour out. We have a new T0 for you. 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 19:54 UTC for those around the globe. SpaceX continues to try to find an avenue to launch today with this new adjusted time that puts them just about half an hour remaining on the launch window. After that, currently back to T-minus 1 hour, 38 minutes, 33 seconds and counting. As we've now got a longer lead time than with that slight adjustment a moment ago, we're going to bring our space tunes back, give you some easy listening, and we'll, of course, provide any further updates as they become available. You're continuing to watch Spaceflight Now's live coverage of what will hopefully be the launch of Starlink 10-16 from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Now under 1 hour and a half to the current T0 time. Again, that is 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 1954 UTC for those around the world. SpaceX continues to push further and further into its launch window with just about half an hour remaining to maneuver around if still needed today. If SpaceX is able to launch its Falcon 9 rocket, this would represent the second fastest turnaround at any point in the launch window today with a good liftoff. But as we've been watching the presence of cumulus clouds in the area, seeing still in a Phase 1 lightning watch, the Phase 2 lightning warning has since expired about 30 minutes or so ago. But we still have the presence of that shelf of clouds that has been pushing towards us here throughout the course of the afternoon. Appear to be a tower of cumulonimbus clouds with an anvil top that's sitting basically right in the path of the rocket's flight as it would ascend from the Space Coast. So that's going to need to clear out before they're able to launch from a weather standpoint. A little hard to judge the exact timing of this storm's progression, as I will note that I am not a licensed meteorologist. I've worn a number of hats during my time in local news. That, unfortunately, is not one of them. But we'll continue to provide updates as best we can on the path towards the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. When it is able to launch, this will be SpaceX's 496th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date, the 79th of the year so far, carrying 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites up to low Earth orbit, adding to a constellation currently consisting of a little more than 7,800 remaining in LEO at this time. We'll continue to provide you some updates as we have them, as the countdown progresses to what will hopefully be the final hour of the count. You're watching Spaceflight Now as live coverage of Starlink 10-16 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We're now once again on the cusp of being at 1 hour out from the planned T0 liftoff time of this Falcon 9 rocket from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That pesky cloud formation still hanging to the north of the spaceport here. Still potentially a limiting factor for SpaceX as they hope to launch their 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit today. Since we last came on the mic, the T0 has not adjusted. Not to say that it won't as I'm speaking right now, but currently the company is moving towards a liftoff just before the top of the hour at 4 o'clock. Looking for a departure at 3:54 p.m. Eastern at 19:54 UTC. When this mission does get into motion, the first stage booster, which is tail number B1080, flying for a 20th time, will target a touchdown on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. A successful drone ship landing today would mark the 126th good touchdown for that particular vessel and the 468th drone ship or a booster landing of any kind to date. In about 20 minutes is the point at which SpaceX launch director will make the call on the start of prop load at this point in the countdown. Again, that's assuming there's not another T0 adjustment around the corner. Continuing to monitor for any updates, and we'll keep you apprised as we hear anything. Certainly appreciate all of you who have been patiently waiting and watching for the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream. Allows some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. Time now currently T-minus 52 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. SpaceX at this point still aiming for that liftoff just before 4 p.m. Eastern. Want to thank the little more than 1,100 of you that are watching with us live this Wednesday afternoon. Taking a look at our live chat here. Also want to thank a few folks for your support today. Thanks to Well-Reasoned Superhawk for a $5 super chat, who says thanks for always being here when things are going off. Great group of mods and fans, along with the whole Spaceflight Now team. Thank you, Well-Reasoned, for the kind words. Also thanks to Gary Charles Aquaviva for a $2 and then a $10 super chat. Really appreciate the support this afternoon, Gary. Thank you so much. With just about 50 minutes remaining on the clock and it having been, oh gosh, at least a couple hours now since we first brought it up, let's go ahead and give you a refresh of the countdown timeline. These are the hopeful milestones that we'll actually see come to pass as SpaceX is potentially, hopefully, within the final hour now of the count once again. Things will really pick up when the SpaceX launch director gives the go-ahead for the start of prop load, which will get underway at the T-minus 35-minute mark with the loading of RP-1 and liquid oxygen. That LOX will flow on board the booster stage of the rocket, and the rocket propellant 1, RP-1, rocket-grade kerosene will flow on board both the first and second stages of the vehicle. T-minus 30 minutes is when they'll start to load a cryogenic helium on board the pressure vessels of the Falcon 9 rocket's first stage, second stage, second. Helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes out, the second stage RP-1 tank is full. At T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process will begin. We'll see this visually manifest as the so-called big vent at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Lasting roughly 4 minutes in duration, it'll set up the start of second stage LOX load at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes is when SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps and help to thermally condition the Merlin engines at the base of the booster. 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank is full. 4.5 minutes to go. The strong back retract will get underway. It starts with the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings opening up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, will recline a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stay in that position until liftoff. At that point, it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of this Falcon 9. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage, about a minute afterwards, at which point the rocket is fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, we'll hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup. Control of the countdown will be handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are being brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold-down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Hopefully coming up at 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 1954 UTC, or in just about T-minus 47 minutes from now. Now T-minus 45 minutes, 16 seconds and counting. The flight of today's Falcon booster, tail number B1080, will be its 20th trip to space and back. Not quite enough at this point in SpaceX's legacy of Falcon 9 rockets to make it into the frequent flyers list. Giving you a quick overview of where things stand in the top 5 spots. Granted, there are more than 5 on this list. We still have that three-way tie between B10, 76, 77, and 78 with 21 flights apiece. SpaceX is working to certify its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights each. B1067 continues to hold that front spot with 28 missions so far. SpaceX also wants to bring up its payload fairings for that amount of certification as well. As of the most recent update, the most flown fairing has made a 30th trip to support a payload. With the launch of the Dragon Grace earlier this morning, here's a look at the Falcon family of rockets bar chart graphic. SpaceX has launched 78 times so far this year, looking for flight number 79 to close out a very busy day of launch coverage this June 25th. Now just about 43.5 minutes away from liftoff. Bit of a breeze out there now. Want to take a look back at the clouds that we were tracking from the satellite view. You can see they're starting to thin out as they pass over and head really towards central Florida. time now, T-minus 38 minutes and counting. At this point, the SpaceX launch director should be making a call on the start of prop load for today's flight, assuming that they are still, in fact, targeting a T0 at 3:54 p.m. Eastern. Haven't seen an adjustment to the T0 in some time, so hopefully we are close enough now that they will have made the commitment to a launch attempt, and we can see them proceed towards a good liftoff of this rocket, carrying 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. As we approach the final minute ahead of the start of fueling the Falcon 9 rocket, taking a look at the payload on board today's flight, 27 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites in total. Today will be the 58th launch, with Starlink satellites being the primary payload. The 57th dedicated Starlink mission, with Starlink 13-1 having carried 2 Starshield satellites into low Earth orbit. You can see the weight difference between the optimized version of the Starlink satellites, which are pictured in that image in between the payload facts and the live image of the rocket on the far right-hand side of your screen. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. Still using argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvers. These satellites were manufactured up in Redmond, Washington, and they'll be deployed at 172 miles or 277 kilometers in altitude at a 53-degree inclination. And as you see with our countdown clock, we are just under the 35-minute mark, which means, just double checking to make sure SpaceX hasn't adjusted the T0, but assuming that they haven't, the Falcon 9 rocket is now tanking for the start of, or tanking towards a liftoff at 3:54 p.m. Eastern. Unfortunately, the clarity that we had a little bit earlier when the clouds were helping to tamp down the heat waves have gone away, which is good because now that means that SpaceX has a better opportunity to launch. Not as great because that heat distortion makes it quite difficult to get a good picture of the rocket from this perspective. Because SpaceX isn't likely to announce the start of fueling for a Starlink mission, we're reliant on the visual cues to let us know that tanking has gotten underway. Just above the tree line, we'll start to see a bit of a frost line form on the booster stage as liquid oxygen presumably is now flowing on board that rocket. Given the temperature between that super cold densified liquid oxygen and the considerably warmer and more humid Florida air, we'll see a little bit of vapor form in that region of the launch vehicle as well. We usually are able to discern the start of fueling at around T-minus 33 to 30 minutes out. May take just a hair longer because of how much heat distortion there is this afternoon. Difficult to discern, but we do believe we're starting to see that frost line form on the booster stage. A little bit of vapor in that region of the rocket as well, so we're comfortable in calling that SpaceX is now fueling its Falcon 9 rocket there at pad 40, which means they are finally locking into a T0 today at 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 1954 UTC. Now less than 29 minutes remaining on the clock as SpaceX is fueling its Falcon 9 rocket ahead of the launch of Starlink 10-16. Certainly appreciate the 1,700 plus of you who are with us at this point in the countdown. If you haven't already, you could do us a big old favor just by clicking the like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we get closer and closer to SpaceX completing its second Falcon 9 flight of the day. We're approaching 13 hours post liftoff of the Axiom 4 launch. Again, that crew is set to dock with the International Space Station at the space-facing port of the Harmony module. That's coming up tomorrow morning at about 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 1100 UTC. Former NASA astronaut, current head of human spaceflight for Axiom Space, Peggy Whitson, making her third trip into space with this mission, leading a crew of rookies alongside her, consisting of mission pilot Shubhanshu Shukla from India, mission specialist Sławosz Uvnański-Wisniewski from Poland, and the second mission specialist Tibor Kapu of Hungary. Each of those three representing countries who haven't sent astronauts into space for more than 40 years, giving the mission the tagline, quote, "Realizing the Return." If you'd like to learn more about the 4 astronauts that are flying on board this mission, at your leisure, we have a video with our profile pieces on all 4 crew members bundled up into one convenient video package for you. That's on the YouTube channel right here at Spaceflight Now. Time now 23 minutes and counting to the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. At this point, SpaceX has been loading cryogenic helium on board the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first and second stages. They'll be used to pressurize the propellant tanks during flight. We're coming up on the start of the big vent here in the next 2 minutes, which is the visual element of SpaceX thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. That second stage LOX load will begin at the 16-minute mark, but the big vent starts at T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds here at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape. And you see the big vent now in swing there at pad 40. Time now T-minus 20 minutes, 9 seconds and counting. This venting will last until about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds. Got less than a minute remaining on this venting process here at the pad. So far, now that we've gotten into the final countdown, things have been progressing smoothly for SpaceX with clear skies up on ahead. Take a look out at the wide shot here. You can see there are still some cumulus clouds hanging around Florida's spaceport, but nowhere near the type of cloud cover that we were seeing earlier on in the day. Wrapping up this venting in the next 5 seconds or so. You can see it's starting to taper off already. And with the conclusion of this big vent, now SpaceX pivots to second stage liquid oxygen load. The last notable fueling milestone that had not begun with this Falcon 9 rocket. As SpaceX prepares to launch this booster B-1080 for a 20th time, let's take a moment to talk about the flight history for this particular first stage. Fitting that this launch comes on June 25th. This booster actually flew for the first time on a different Axiom mission. That was AX-2 back on May 21st of 2023. That was the first time that Peggy Whitson commanded a mission for Axiom Space up to the International Space Station, currently en route to the ISS with her 3 colleagues as part of Axiom Mission 4. Next flight for this booster was the launch of the European Space Agency's Euclid Observatory, taking flight on July 1st of 2023. Followed up by the first launch of Starlink satellites for this booster. First couple actually here. We had Starlink 6-11 on August 27th and then 6-24 on October 22nd. That would be followed up by another mission for Axiom Space, AX-3, this time commanded by the chief astronaut for Axiom Space, Michael Lopez Alegria, also a former NASA astronaut. Another Dragon flight for this booster came in the form of CRS-30, Commercial Resupply Services 30 mission, cargo run to the space station this go-around, lifting off on March 21st of last year. After that, we had a couple more Starlink flights. You had Starlink 6-52 on April 18th and 6-62 on May 23rd. That was followed by the Astra 1P/SES-24 mission, lifting off on June 20th. Another flight to the space station came in the form of Cygnus NG-21, or Northrop Grumman and their 21st mission as part of their Commercial Resupply Services contract with NASA. Back to Starlink flights after this. I believe, just double checking, yeah, it's all Starlinks bringing us up to the present day. We had Starlink 10-10 on October 15th, 6-69 on November 11th, 12-1 on November 25th, 12-2 on December 23rd, 12-4 on January 13th, 10-2 on February 18th, 6-80 on March 31st, 6-75 on May 2nd, and most recently we had Starlink 10-32 lifting off on May 28th of this year. And in 13 minutes, we'll see this booster take off one more time, carrying Starlink satellites up to low Earth orbit as part of Starlink 10-16. Now, a little less than 11 and a half minutes to go on this Falcon 9 mission. Looking to lift off at 3:54 p.m. Eastern, 1954 UTC. As we're preparing to see SpaceX launch the 496th Falcon 9 launch to date, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX, the Falcon 9 rocket, which stands 70 meters tall or 229 feet in height. Majority of the rocket is made up by the first stage. Again, this is B1080, looking to make its 80th, or goodness, eventually maybe SpaceX will get up to 80 flights. Let's just see them get to 40 first. This will be the 20th launch for this booster. It's been a long day, folks. Apologies. First stage burns a combination of rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. It features carbon fiber landing legs that surround the engine compartment that are used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Today, SpaceX is using Just Read the Instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage, a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. It has deployable hypersonic grid fins that are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the rocket as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first, like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach the vehicle's second stage. In our first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until the point of stage separation. Moving on to that second stage, the upper stage of a Falcon 9, powered by a single modified Merlin engine, referred to as a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVac engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's Falcon flight, placing the 27 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. Like with the first stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 burns RP-1 and liquid oxygen. And following good deployment of those Starlink satellites, there will be one final upper stage burn to drive it back into the atmosphere, deorbiting it and helping to eliminate the risk of unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the stack are the payload fairings, currently encapsulating those 27 Starlink satellites. They are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 43 feet in height, or 13.1 meters, and are 17.1 feet in diameter, or 5.2 meters. Little less than 8.5 minutes to go ahead of the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up next, in now just a little more than a minute, will be the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster. Turning to our live chat, I want to thank a few folks that are supporting us today with our coverage. Thanks to Kenneth Urbanek, one of our channel members, with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Kenneth. Appreciate your support today. Also, thanks to Robert Philpott for a £2 super chat. Thank you so much, Robert. And thanks to one of our channel members and moderators, Jeff Hansen, for a $10 super chat, who says, "Go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, and Godspeed 1080. Welcome to the Frequent Flyers 20 Plus Club." Now T-minus 6.5 minutes to go. The engine chill currently underway for the Falcon booster. And coming up in about 20 seconds, the second stage RP-1 tank should be full. Excuse me, the first stage RP-1 tank should be full. Had a question in the live chat about where this Falcon 9 rocket's going to be flying once it leaves the pad. So let's take a moment before we get pad level views of the rocket to talk a little trajectory here. This Falcon 9 rocket, once it leaves Slick 40 there at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, as with the flight that we saw this morning for Axiom Mission 4, it's going to be taking a northeasterly flight uphill. Might be a little too bright at this time of day for folks along the East Coast to see this rocket, but if you do happen to catch it as it makes its ascent, be sure to tag us on social media. You can find us on X, Threads, Facebook, and Blue Sky simply at Spaceflight Now. Following stage separation, the booster 1080 will target a touchdown on the drone ship called. Just read the instructions. If successful today, that will mark the 126th booster landing for that particular drone ship and the 378th drone ship landing for SpaceX to date. SpaceX also looking to recover the payload fairings, which will make their atmospheric reentry and then final splashdown under the support of steerable parachutes. Landing in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, they'll be scooped aboard one of the recovery vessels and brought back through Port Canaveral, turned over to the Hangar X site. Where they will be
Thanks for pressing for Sharmic reject.
Refurbished and turned around for future missions. As you just heard, we are now getting pad level views and mission audio courtesy of SpaceX. And some nice angles on the Falcon 9 rocket as it prepares to depart pad 40. Coming up here in just a little more than 4 minutes from now.
Strong back lower has started.
With that call, SpaceX is preparing to open up the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings and then recline the strongback a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Just a quick bit of housekeeping here. You'll note as you see those clamp arms opening that our clock is a little bit ahead of what you're seeing there from SpaceX. Reason being, for those of you who have not been with us for a recent launch, our clock is in real time and what's coming in from SpaceX is on a slight delay. So as long as we have ground level tracking views of the Falcon 9 rocket, we'll be making our callouts based off of those real-time events until we are relying solely on the SpaceX onboard cameras for our coverage. Three minutes and counting. At this point, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Should hear a call out noting that in the next several seconds.
Stage 1 lock load complete.
Good call there on stage 1 LOX load. Expecting a similar call regarding the second stage liquid oxygen tank just past the 2-minute mark. Now T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Momentarily, we'll also start to see the ground gas closeouts.
Stage 2 lock load complete.
Good call out from SpaceX on stage 2 LOX load. You're seeing the ground gas closeouts. The SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen in the feed lines there at the pad.
Gas launch closeout has started.
Good call from SpaceX. We are now approaching 1 minute out from liftoff. Now T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Good call from SpaceX. We are now just listening in for the SpaceX launch director to give their final go for launch coming in the next few seconds.
.30 seconds.
15 seconds. And here we go. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-16 mission, and the Falcon 9 has cleared the towers. Now more than 30 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 rocket beginning a good climb uphill. Soon the vehicle will be throttling back as it prepares to pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Approaching max Q. Rocket now throttling up now that it's past max Q, traveling faster than the speed of sound. SpaceX now thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage ahead of the start of its first burn. Coming up on a few events in fairly rapid succession. We'll have first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at T plus 2 minutes and 24 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation, and then second stage engine start. Payload fairings will separate just a little before the 3-minute mark in flight. Nice view of the Florida coastline here as the rocket pulls away. Confirmation of a nominal trajectory from SpaceX. We're just about 10 seconds from the start of that rapid event sequence, beginning with MECO. And we have MECO. Stage separation. And second stage engine start.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And vac ignition.
Good callouts, good visuals from SpaceX, and some really nice visuals from P. Carson's here, still getting some excellent views, as is Chuck as well, of the Falcon booster as it begins to make its way down towards the drone ship. You see the payload fairings have been deployed.
Fairing separation confirmed.
27 Starlink V2 satellites heading up to low Earth orbit today, and still have a really nice vantage point on all 4 pieces of the Falcon 9 rocket. The 2 fairing halves, that little dot there on the screen, that is the brightest one, is the upper stage engine continuing its burn for the Falcon 9's second stage. And just above it to the left, you can still just barely make it out. Actually, if we can bring in Chuck's or Pete's camera here, he's tracking the booster, still seeing occasional puffs as it passes through a cloud from Pete's vantage point right now. Should be coming on the other side, though, momentarily. Those puffs you're seeing are the cold gas thrusters, which help adjust the vehicle's attitude and positioning. It looks like the first stage booster, B1080, is topping out at about 113 kilometers in altitude today. Now starting to make its descent towards the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
Both stages trajectory nominal.
Confirmation of a nominal trajectory. It might be a little too bright today to see the entry burn, which will use 3 of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster to hit the brakes and really slow the vehicle down. Is a look up through the inner stage there on the left-hand side of your screen from the SpaceX onboard cameras. If we are able to see the entry burn, of course, we will bring those views to you. Just might be a hair too bright at this point in the afternoon. Now less than 20 seconds to the start of the entry burn. Should be at an entry burn startup right about now, in real time. We'll see it on the SpaceX feed in roughly 10 seconds. And
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
just too bright today for our tracking cameras to see it, unfortunately, but that's okay. This entry burn lasting 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, as a matter of fact.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
As the booster is making its way towards the drone ship, hitting that entry burn and eventually the landing burn, the vehicle is flying through its
Stage
own
1 FCS is saved.
plume, which helps give it that
Stage 1 trajectory nominal.
characteristic sootiness. Good call-outs from SpaceX as well. A little more than 7 minutes into the flight in real time. Coming up on the landing burn here at T plus roughly 7 minutes and 44 seconds. The time that matters now at this point, though, is the SpaceX timeline that you see there in the bottom center of your screen. The landing burn happens too far away and too close to the horizon for our tracking cameras to have any hope of
Stage
seeing
1
it.
transonic.
Booster now traveling below the speed of sound. Nice little streak through the clouds. Landing burn about to begin.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 2 terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing leg deployed. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Little scoot, but a good landing of B-1080 on the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
And back shutdown.
Good transfer orbit.
Good confirmation of a nominal parking orbit, or transfer orbit as they term it today. At this point, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket will continue in its coast phase until T plus 54 minutes and 54 seconds. There will be a brief 1 second burn on that upper stage engine, setting up a circularized orbit, allowing the Starlink satellites to be deployed as intended at T plus 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 17 seconds. As we prepare to get our launch replays for you in order, let's go ahead and take a moment to walk you through the mission stats as they currently stand, with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster. That marked the 20th flight now in the books. Typo there, B-1080 is actually the booster that flew today. This was the 496th launch of a Falcon 9 rocket to date, though. The 79th launch of a Falcon 9 in 2025. This was the 434th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. 149th orbital flight for SpaceX within the last 365 days. Today's flight also marked the 261st orbital launch from Pad 40 for SpaceX, and the 316th overall orbital launch from that pad. Here are the Falcon numbers represented in bar chart form. Moving on to some recovery stats now. Good touchdown on the drone ship. Marked the 126th good landing for Just Read the Instructions. That was the 378th drone ship landing for SpaceX and the 468th overall booster landing to date. Finally, with some recovery stats, this was the 55th orbital launch from the Sunshine State of Florida, the 84th launch from U.S. soil, the 92nd from U.S. Rocket Company, and the 139th orbital launch around the world. There have been 3 orbital failures on the year so far, and here is where our pie chart now currently stands. A little more than 12 minutes past liftoff. Let's go ahead and walk you through our launch replays, beginning with our Adam Bernstein's press site fixed camera view. As these replays get going, I want to thank a few folks in the live chat for your support today. Our thanks to Looney Lion for a $5 super chat. Appreciate that, Looney. Thank you so much. Chuck Close, one of our channel members here, with a very generous $25 super chat. Good to see you this afternoon, Chuck. Appreciate your ongoing support of what we do here at Spaceflight Now. And Mrs. Ed3, as we check in with Adam's wide view here. Mrs. Ed3 marking 13 months with us as a channel member at the pad leader level, who says, "I do love my rocket launches," as do we all. Very glad to see this leave the pad today. I also want to thank Callistia Lee, one of our channel members and moderators, who just gifted 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Appreciate that generosity, Callistia, as we see the Falcon 9 fly out of frame in this replay. And to our 5 newest gifted channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Turning now to the turn-based view. And if you haven't already, be sure to turn your appreciation to Callistia in the live chat. Be sure to thank her for the membership. We decide to stick around with us beyond the month you were just gifted. south tracker. Now turning to the wide tracker from Pete Carson's with Max Q Productions. Now looking at the Merritt Island tracker from Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. And finally, wrapping things up with the press site tracker from our own Adam Bernstein. And with that, that brings our live coverage of the Starlink 10-16 mission to a close. I want to thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat who have been hanging tough here throughout the course of this longer than advertised broadcast. So thanks to Rick Donner, Jeff Hansen, and Callistia Lee for helping us out today. Thanks to channel member Cumulus Granatus for answering folks' questions in the live chat as well. Big thanks to our photographer team of Adam and Michael, who have been working doggedly out here at the end of a very long day following a very long night. You can follow them as well as Michael Kane at their handles here on X as well as Spaceflight Now. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast this afternoon. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you have been watching from. We sincerely appreciate your time and attention during this coverage as well as the flight of Axiom Mission 4 earlier today. So big thank you if you were here for both of these. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.